Definitely. Any time that is their opinion, fine. But
behind the rugged, dust-covered image of America's most iconic cowboy lived a man whose opinions were as sharp and uncompromising as the characters he played. John Wayne was more than just a movie star. He was an Oscar winner, a box office titan, and for decades the living symbol of traditional American masculinity. On screen, he embodied confidence, strength, and unwavering certainty. Off-screen, however, the man behind the legend carried strong private judgments, some so intense that they shaped the careers of the people around him. According to people who worked closely with him, Wayne quietly maintained what could only be described as a mental blacklist. An assistant director who collaborated with him on multiple films once revealed that Wayne never forgot a slight, a disagreement, or even an uncomfortable working experience. Certain actors were individuals he would simply refuse to work with again, no matter how famous they became.
That's not a true statement.
Well,
we were not blacklisting.
Well, you were.
They were blacklisting.
Others found themselves the subject of behind-the-scenes lobbying, where Wayne would privately discourage producers and directors from casting them in projects connected to him. What makes these stories so fascinating isn't just the animosity itself, it's how carefully Wayne managed to hide it from the public. On set, he remained the consummate professional. Directors often praised him for his discipline and efficiency. He rarely allowed personal tensions to spill into his performances, and audiences watching his films had no idea that behind those calm, steady eyes, there might be genuine resentment toward the person sharing the scene with him. Yet those quiet grudges left a subtle mark on Hollywood. Casting decisions changed. Collaborations never happened. Entire projects took different directions simply because Wayne refused to share the screen with certain people. For decades, these conflicts remained hidden beneath the polished surface of classic American cinema, tucked away behind legendary performances that millions watched without suspecting the tension simmering just outside the frame. And perhaps no rivalry represented this clash of styles and philosophies more dramatically than Wayne's long-standing resentment toward Montgomery Clift. Wayne's hostility toward Clift began during the filming of Red River in 1948. What should have been a straightforward collaboration quickly turned into a symbolic battle between two completely different visions of acting. Wayne stood for the traditional style, strong, direct, heroic. Clift represented something entirely new: emotional vulnerability, psychological depth, and the emerging influence of method acting. To Wayne, this new approach felt almost like a challenge to the kind of screen presence he had spent years building. Tensions reportedly began even before the cameras started rolling. Wayne allegedly made a dismissive comment about Clift's appearance, suggesting he didn't look like someone who could actually work cattle. Clift overheard the remark and responded with quiet sarcasm, saying that acting was about convincing the audience, not actually living the life being portrayed. That exchange set the tone for everything that followed. Clift's method approach meant constant questions about character motivation, emotional backstory, and subtle script changes. He wanted to explore every psychological layer of the character. Wayne, on the other hand, believed in efficiency. Learn the lines, hit your mark, and deliver the performance. During one particularly tense moment on set, Wayne reportedly snapped in frustration. "For Christ's sake," he shouted, "it's a Western, not a visit to the head shrinker. Just say the damn lines." But the conflict ran deeper than simple irritation. Privately, Wayne knew something that bothered him even more. Clift's performance was undeniably powerful. Audiences and critics noticed the emotional intensity he brought to the role, and for a brief moment, Wayne reportedly questioned whether his own style might be losing ground in a changing Hollywood. Instead of adapting, Wayne doubled down. He dismissed Clift's approach as therapy on camera, and from that point forward, he grew increasingly skeptical of the rising generation of method actors who were beginning to dominate American film. After Red River, the two never worked together again. Their rivalry quietly symbolized a turning point in Hollywood history, the moment when acting styles began shifting away from the heroic, larger-than-life tradition Wayne represented toward the emotionally complex performances that actors like Clift were pioneering.
We stayed completely out of it and said, we are Americans. Anybody that wanted to join us, it was fine.
Years later, when asked about Montgomery Clift, Wayne's response was brief and cutting. Talented? Sure, he said, but he helped ruin what American acting used to stand for. If Clift represented a challenge to Wayne's acting philosophy, Kirk Douglas represented something even more personal, a challenge to his vision of America itself. The tension between Wayne and Douglas wasn't just about movies. It was political, ideological, and deeply rooted in their opposing worldviews. Directors who worked with both men often said that they embodied two completely different interpretations of what American identity meant during the mid-20th century. Their conflict reached its peak during Hollywood's blacklist era, when Douglas made the bold decision to hire blacklisted screenwriter Dalton Trumbo to write Spartacus and publicly credit him. Many in Hollywood saw it as a courageous stand against the industry's anti-communist crackdown. Wayne saw it very differently. To him, Douglas's decision was a direct insult to what he believed were patriotic principles. According to a producer close to Wayne, he called the move spitting in the face of everyone trying to protect America. From that moment forward, Wayne reportedly refused to attend events where Douglas was being honored. The rivalry escalated even further when both men were considered for roles in The Alamo, a film that Wayne considered his most personal project. He was not only starring in it, but also directing and helping finance the production. When Douglas expressed interest in joining the cast, Wayne allegedly delivered a blunt ultimatum to the studio.
Well, he didn't work for some time. It had a very
Well, he
adverse
hadn't
effect
worked
on
a
his
hell of a
career.
lot before that, had he?
Well, no, but I mean...
No.
But I mean, these aren't...
Either Douglas was out, or he was. And since Wayne's money was helping fund the movie, the decision was never really in doubt. The hostility between John Wayne and Kirk Douglas didn't remain a simple disagreement between two outspoken personalities. Over time, it began to shape the very films being made in Hollywood. Their mutual refusal to work together forced studios to rethink casting on several major westerns throughout the 1960s. Producers quietly rewrote scripts, replaced actors, or abandoned projects altogether rather than risk placing the two men on the same set. What had started as a clash of political beliefs slowly evolved into something far more personal. By the early 1960s, their rivalry had become symbolic of a much larger cultural divide taking shape across the country. Film historians often point out that the Wayne-Douglas feud mirrored the ideological tensions sweeping through America at the time. Wayne represented the traditional, patriotic, conservative vision of the country he believed had made Hollywood great. Douglas, on the other hand, stood for a more progressive and outspoken generation willing to challenge long-standing institutions. They represented opposite sides of America's culture war before we even had that phrase, one historian later explained. Their conflict wasn't merely about casting decisions or film roles. It reflected a deeper disagreement about what kind of nation America should become and what stories Hollywood should tell about it. Yet if Douglas represented a political challenge to Wayne's worldview, another actor represented something Wayne found even more unsettling, a cultural revolution that threatened to reshape Hollywood entirely. That man was Marlon Brando. Interestingly, Wayne and Brando never actually worked together. Their feud wasn't born on a movie set, but grew from Wayne's deep resentment toward everything Brando symbolized in the evolving film industry. To Wayne, Brando embodied the arrival of a new Hollywood that rejected the traditions he had spent his entire career defending. Producers who knew both men often described the tension between them as almost philosophical. Wayne valued discipline, professionalism and clear storytelling, Brando represented something far more unpredictable: method acting, emotional improvisation, and open defiance of the old studio system. Their conflict began quietly after Brando's explosive performance in A Streetcar Named Desire in 1951. The performance helped popularize method acting and introduced a new style of emotionally raw, psychologically complex performances that captivated audiences. While critics praised the innovation, Wayne viewed the approach with skepticism. To him, it felt self-indulgent and unnecessarily complicated. But what began as artistic disagreement soon escalated into genuine hostility once politics entered the picture. The moment that pushed Wayne's frustration into outright anger came in 1973 during the Academy Awards.
The radical liberals were going to take over our business. And we wouldn't have had any pictures like that then.
When Brando won the Oscar for The Godfather, he refused to attend the ceremony. Instead, he sent Native American activist Sachin Littlefeather to the stage to decline the award and deliver a speech protesting Hollywood's portrayal of Native Americans. For Brando, it was a powerful political statement. For Wayne, it felt like a direct attack on the Western genre, the very foundation of his career. According to people who were backstage at the ceremony, Wayne was furious. One Academy member later recalled that he had to be physically restrained behind the curtain because he was so enraged by what was happening on stage. He kept saying Brando was insulting every film he had ever made, the witness remembered. Wayne later addressed the incident in a widely discussed interview where he defended his portrayals of Native Americans and criticized Brando for rejecting what he considered one of the industry's greatest honors. Brando fired back in his own comments, calling Wayne a symbol of everything he believed was wrong with American culture. Their conflict became deeply symbolic. Both men understood that they represented very different visions of American masculinity and storytelling. Wayne stood for the traditional hero, strong, decisive, and morally certain. Brando embodied the new era of flawed, emotionally complex characters who questioned authority and challenged old assumptions. Their feud highlighted a cultural shift that would eventually transform Hollywood entirely. They never worked together because they simply couldn't, one director familiar with both men later said. They weren't just different actors. They represented two completely different Americas. Another rivalry from Wayne's career revealed a more personal side of his competitiveness, his quiet but intense tension with Clark Gable, the legendary King of Hollywood. Unlike the ideological battles with Douglas or Brando, Wayne's rivalry with Gable was rooted in something far simpler: pride. Both men were towering figures of classic Hollywood masculinity, and the industry often treated them as competing symbols of the same archetype. Casting directors from the era frequently described the dynamic as a classic power struggle. Two big dogs who couldn't share the same yard, one veteran casting director once said. The tension began long before Wayne became the star audiences remember today. During his early years, when he was still struggling through low-budget westerns, Gable was already one of the biggest names in Hollywood. Several roles Wayne auditioned for ultimately went to Gable instead, creating a quiet resentment that lingered for years. But the rivalry truly intensified during World War II. Gable enlisted in the Army Air Forces and flew combat missions in Europe, earning admiration both inside and outside the film industry. Wayne, meanwhile, remained in Hollywood making movies. Although he had a family deferment and faced strong pressure from studios to stay and continue working, the comparisons between the two men became unavoidable, and those comparisons cut deeply. According to friends close to Wayne, he hated being measured against Gable's wartime service. The subject followed him for the rest of his career, resurfacing in interviews and public conversations long after the war had ended. Wayne already carried complicated feelings about not serving. Having Gable's record constantly mentioned beside his own only made the discomfort worse. As the years passed, Wayne's fame skyrocketed while Gable's dominance slowly began to fade. Yet the rivalry between them remained an unspoken undercurrent in Hollywood. The rivalry between John Wayne and Clark Gable reached its most dramatic moment during the production of Mogambo in 1953. Both actors were briefly considered for involvement in the film, but the situation quickly turned tense behind the scenes, according to accounts. From people close to the production, Wayne issued a blunt ultimatum to director John Ford, a man he had worked with for years and trusted deeply. "It's him or me," Wayne reportedly said. Ford ultimately chose to move forward with Gable, a decision that effectively ended any possibility of Wayne working on the project. Though Ford and Wayne would collaborate again in the future, the moment cemented the reality that the two towering stars of Hollywood masculinity simply could not coexist on the same production. Their rivalry quietly simmered for years after that. The final chapter of their complicated relationship arrived in 1961. Gable had just finished filming The Misfits, a physically demanding production in which he insisted on performing many of his own stunts despite being in his late 50s. The exhaustion took a toll. Shortly after the film wrapped, Gable suffered a fatal heart attack. When Wayne heard the news, he reportedly turned to a friend and said something that revealed a rare glimpse of reflection. "This business kills all of us," he murmured. "In the end, even kings." Despite decades of rivalry and unspoken resentment, Wayne attended Gable's funeral. He didn't seek attention and reportedly stood quietly near the back of the crowd. The gesture surprised some who knew about their long-standing tension. But to Wayne, Gable represented something undeniable. Another man who had survived the brutal pressures of Hollywood stardom. He may never have liked him, but he respected him. By the late 1960s, however, the challenges Wayne faced in Hollywood were no longer coming from his own generation of stars. A new kind of actor was rising, one whose style, characters, and worldview felt completely foreign to the legendary Western icon. One of the clearest examples of that shift was Gene Hackman. Wayne's dislike for Hackman wasn't simply about personality. It represented a much larger collision between Hollywood's old guard and the emerging realism of the new Hollywood era. Directors who worked with both men often described the tension as almost inevitable. Wayne represented the classic hero, morally clear, confident, and unwavering. Hackman's characters, on the other hand, were flawed, unpredictable, and often morally conflicted. For Wayne, that difference wasn't just stylistic. It felt like a threat to everything his career had been built upon. The turning point came in 1971 with the release of The French Connection. Hackman's portrayal of Detective Popeye Doyle, a reckless, obsessive, morally compromised lawman, captivated audiences and critics alike. The performance earned Hackman the Academy Award for Best Actor and redefined what a movie hero could look like. Wayne reportedly watched part of the film, but walked out before it finished. Later, speaking to associates, he delivered a blunt assessment. "That's not a hero," he said. "If that's where movies are going, I don't want any part of it." Their professional tension became personal during the early development of The Train Robbers in 1973. Producers briefly discussed the possibility of casting Hackman in a supporting role alongside Wayne. The idea never made it far. According to multiple production sources, Wayne personally contacted the producers and made his position clear. Either Hackman was removed from consideration, or Wayne would leave the project. "I won't have my audiences confused by whatever he thinks acting is supposed to be," he reportedly said. The hostility between them revealed something deeper than a simple disagreement between actors. It reflected the dramatic shift in audience expectations taking place during that era. After the turbulence of the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal, many viewers were no longer interested in perfectly heroic figures. They wanted characters who were messy, complicated, and human. Actors like Hackman delivered exactly that. For Wayne, however, the change felt like a rejection of the very foundation of Hollywood storytelling. One co-star from his later films recalled that Wayne took the rise of actors like Hackman almost personally. He believed they were tearing down the kind of movies that built this industry, the actor said. The bitterness was impossible to ignore. Their rivalry symbolized a painful transition in American cinema, from the confident mythology of classic Hollywood to the uncertain realism of a new generation of filmmakers. And if Hackman represented the future Wayne struggled to accept, another actor embodied something Wayne found equally unsettling, a level of authenticity that challenged his own approach to Western characters. That actor was Robert Duvall. Perhaps the most professionally significant conflict of Wayne's later career involved Duvall, an actor known for his meticulous preparation and deep commitment to realism. Where Wayne relied on instinct, charisma, and decades of experience in Western roles, Duvall approached characters with almost scholarly dedication. Wayne played Western characters, a costume designer who worked with both men once explained. Duvall tried to become them. That difference created a tension that went beyond simple professional rivalry. The conflict reportedly began during early casting discussions for True Grit in 1969. Both actors were connected to the production at different stages, and Duvall was briefly considered for a supporting role opposite Wayne's Rooster Cogburn, but the idea didn't last long. According to production notes and accounts from crew members, Wayne personally vetoed Duvall's casting after hearing about the lengths he was going to in preparation for the role. Duvall had reportedly spent time living among real Texas Rangers, studying their speech patterns, habits, and mannerisms in order to portray the character as authentically as possible. Nobody cares if he can really rope a steer. That blunt remark, attributed to John Wayne during discussions about Robert Duvall's preparation methods, perfectly captured the divide between two generations of Western actors. To Wayne, authenticity in the genre came from presence, confidence, and the mythic image of the cowboy hero. To Duvall, authenticity meant immersion, studying dialects, learning real frontier skills, and understanding the historical realities behind the characters. The tension between those two philosophies defined their uneasy professional relationship. During the casting process for True Grit in 1969, Duvall had been briefly considered for a role opposite Wayne's Rooster Cogburn. But Wayne reportedly dismissed the idea quickly after learning about the lengths Duvall went to when preparing for a part. Living with real Texas Rangers, studying their speech patterns, and practicing their physical routines seemed excessive to Wayne. To him, that level of preparation felt unnecessary. "We're making a movie, not a documentary," he reportedly told members of the production team. While Wayne's legendary performance in True Grit would earn him the Academy Award for Best Actor, the philosophical divide between him and actors like Duvall only grew wider as Hollywood evolved. Wayne represented the mythic West, heroes larger than life, riding across a landscape shaped by courage and moral certainty. Duvall, by contrast, was part of a new generation determined to explore the gritty realities behind that mythology. Years later, after Wayne had passed away, that difference became even more visible when Duvall starred in the critically acclaimed miniseries Lonesome Dove in 1989. His performance as the weathered Texas Ranger Augustus McCrae was praised for its depth, humor, and emotional realism. It was widely considered one of the most authentic portrayals of frontier life ever brought to the screen. While promoting the series, Duvall didn't hesitate to offer his perspective on the older Western tradition. In one interview, he bluntly remarked that many of Wayne's Westerns were about as authentic as a $3 bill. He added that Wayne had essentially played the same character throughout his career, often wearing the same hat and embodying the same heroic persona. The comment stirred debate among fans and historians alike. What made the moment particularly revealing was how clearly it exposed the philosophical divide between the two actors. Wayne had built his legend by creating iconic Western heroes, figures that symbolized courage, justice, and a powerful national myth. Duvall, on the other hand, believed Western characters should reflect the complexity and contradictions of real history. Film historians later noted that Wayne may have sensed exactly what Duvall represented. Here was an actor demonstrating that Western stories could remain dramatic and compelling while also embracing realism and historical detail. The genre didn't have to rely entirely on myth. For Wayne, however, that shift felt like a challenge to the legacy he had spent decades building. The result was a one-sided resentment that lingered throughout Wayne's final years, an uneasiness toward performers who represented the future of a genre he had once dominated but could no longer fully control. Yet even Duvall's challenge to Wayne's approach paled in comparison to the man who would ultimately inherit Wayne's place in Western cinema. That man was Clint Eastwood. Among all of Wayne's professional rivalries, his tension with Eastwood carried the greatest symbolic weight. Eastwood was not just another actor entering the Western genre. He was the figure audiences increasingly saw as Wayne's successor, the new face of the American cowboy. But he represented that role in a way Wayne found deeply troubling. According to producers who worked with both men, their disagreement went far beyond personal pride or competition. It reflected a fundamental conflict over the very meaning of the Western itself and what it should say about America. The tension began with Eastwood's breakthrough performances in Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy. Films like A Fistful of Dollars reimagined the Western through a darker, morally ambiguous lens. The traditional noble cowboy was replaced by a quiet, calculating anti-hero whose motives were often unclear. Wayne reportedly watched one of the films and was deeply unimpressed. Soon afterward, he sent Eastwood a letter criticizing the movie and condemning what he believed was the destruction of the Western hero's dignity. To Wayne, the cowboy represented courage, honor, and moral clarity. Eastwood's characters, by contrast, seemed cynical and detached. As Eastwood's career grew stronger in the late 1960s and early 1970s, Wayne's health was beginning to decline. The contrast between their trajectories only intensified the tension. At one point, Eastwood sent Wayne the script for High Plains Drifter in 1973, hoping the legendary star might be interested in participating in the project. Wayne returned the script with a sharply worded note criticizing its portrayal of the Old West as a place filled with corruption and moral darkness rather than frontier virtue. According to a friend close to Wayne, he reportedly said he would rather die than help make a film that undermined the values the Western genre was supposed to represent. Wayne believed Eastwood's characters were anti-heroes who rejected everything the classic Western stood for. Their rivalry reportedly came to a head at a Hollywood gathering in the mid-1970s. Wayne, already in declining health, confronted Eastwood directly. Witnesses later recalled Wayne telling him that Sergio Leone had turned him into a shadow of a man instead of a proper Western hero. For Wayne, the cowboy was supposed to stand for something good. Ironically, Eastwood's later career would prove far more complex than Wayne expected. Over time, he evolved from the quiet gunslinger of the spaghetti westerns into a filmmaker capable of exploring both the myth and the reality of the American frontier. His Oscar-winning film, Unforgiven, in 1992, honored the traditions Wayne had helped build, while also questioning the moral simplicity those stories once relied upon. In a strange twist of history, Eastwood eventually achieved everything Wayne valued most: creative control, critical respect, and enormous influence within the film industry. But he did so while fundamentally transforming the Western genre Wayne had fought so hard to preserve. As one director who worked with Eastwood later observed, Wayne couldn't accept that the Western needed to evolve. He believed Eastwood was betraying the genre, the director said, when in reality, Eastwood was saving it by making it meaningful for a new generation. Wayne's refusal to acknowledge Eastwood as a legitimate successor became his final stand against the changing face of the Western. It was a battle he ultimately lost, as audiences increasingly embraced the moral complexity and realism he had spent his career resisting. As we've explored these 7 intense rivalries from John Wayne's career, a more layered picture of the man behind the legend begins to emerge. Wayne wasn't just a movie star protecting his reputation. He was defending a vision of Hollywood and American heroism that he believed in deeply. His clashes with actors like Montgomery Clift, Marlon Brando, and Gene Hackman weren't simply personal grudges. They reflected his resistance to the changing style of acting that emphasized vulnerability, complexity, and moral ambiguity. Meanwhile, his conflicts with figures like Kirk Douglas and Clint Eastwood represented something even bigger, competing ideas about what the American hero should stand for on screen. In many ways, Wayne's greatest struggle wasn't with other actors at all. It was with time. As Hollywood evolved and audiences embraced more complicated characters and stories, the clear-cut hero Wayne had spent decades portraying began to feel like a relic of another era, yet his influence never disappeared. Even the actors who challenged his approach helped shape their careers in the shadow of the cinematic world he helped build. And that's part of what makes John Wayne's legacy so powerful. His impact was so enormous that the next generation of actors had to redefine the genre in response to him. If you enjoyed this look into Hollywood's hidden rivalries, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which of these feuds surprised you the most? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.